r/ask Reddit. What's a tip that everyone should know which might one day save their life? Don't pour water on a grease fire. One of the many things I watched on TV as a kid were Elvis Presley movies. In one of his movies he has a date with a girl in her apartment. She cooks a roast in the oven for their dinner. Elvis arrives and the food is burning. Flames are shooting out of the oven. She makes a move to throw water on the fire, but Elvis stops her and grabs a container of salt and throws handfuls of salt onto the fire, which promptly puts it out. One day I'm sitting in the living room when I hear my mother yell from the kitchen. I race there and flames are leaping out of the broiler. Huge grease fire, almost as high as the stove itself. Mother makes a move to throw water on it, but remembering how Elvis did it, I stop her. Then I grab a container of salt and throw handfuls of salt onto the fire, which immediately extinguishes the flames within seconds. Mother looks at me with a surprised expression on her face and she asks me, "How did you know to do that?" "Thanks, Elvis. Thank you very much." Calm people live. Tense people die. The most important thing you can ever do in a potentially life-threatening situation is breathe, when possible, and focus on doing things calmly. You can always freak out later. Panic after you survive. My parents got into a car accident before I was born. Drunk driver hit their taxi, and luckily they were so drunk that they were incredibly calm about it, and were then told that's what may have saved their lives. This is why drunk drivers tend to survive more than their victims. Drunks tend to ragdoll. At all costs, don't let an attacker drag you into a vehicle. You never want to go to a second location. Yup, you can be damn sure if I'm going to die, I'm dying right where I am. I have said the same thing to myself 1,000 times. I'd rather be shot in the streets than be taken somewhere for something in an attacker's car. Whether or not my brain would freeze up is another thing completely. If you're stabbed or impaled and the offending object is still in your body, do not pull it out. Doing so can make you bleed out. I have seen a lot of people who believe this is a myth and natural instinct says to pull out something that puncturing you. But this is extremely important. Leave it in until a medical professional can remove it. If the object goes in the body and smoothly, it will more than likely create a wound internally that is almost identical in size to the object, so it essentially acts as a plug. If it is pulled out, any blood vessels that are cut will no longer have the knife's edges pressing against them and they will begin to bleed. If you pull it out and don't notice a lot of blood, the bleeding could be internal so you wouldn't even realize that you are bleeding. You could also do some serious damage pulling out the object. My wife is a trauma surgeon and has had people cut organs pulling out knives or other sharp objects. When my son had a piece of fence go through his foot at a friend's house, he called me and I told him to stay still until the paramedics got to the scene. He knew not to pull it out. Once they got there they were able to stabilize it until he got to the hospital so it could be removed. Even if the object is too big to be moved with you, the EMTs or whoever arrives on the scene can cut it down in size so it can be moved. Never remove it. Vomiting can make a potential rapist leave you alone. If nothing else works, put your finger down your throat. Kids. Was in college and was separated from my friends one night that we went out drinking. A car with 5 guys in it pulled me into the backseat across 3 of the guys' laps. Even drunk I remembered my father telling me that vomiting could stop a rape. I looked around at the guys and asked where in here can I throw up. They made a screeching halt and threw me out of the car. May have saved my life. Edit. Row. This blew up. Thanks to everyone who sent the kind thoughts and way to go at my quick thinking. Really though, this happened in the late 80s, when gang rapes happened on scary late night movies and after school specials. It unfortunately wasn't the traumatizing event that it should have been to me at the time, or it may have scared me off of drinking, thus saving me from making more stupid drinking mistakes. I was a gullible, naive young girl that grew up hanging around with my brothers and their friends and didn't feel an instant terror that a young girl would feel in this situation these days. I was very noticeably drunk, walking alone, when I was pulled in the back seat, even though I saw it was filled with boys. Perhaps because of my level of drunkenness, it didn't seem that menacing. No one was grabbing me inappropriately, trying to hold me down. As far as I remember, the only one touching me was the guy holding me on his lap, with his hand around my waist. The guys were laughing like guys who were out drinking and having fun. They didn't say anything scary to me. In fact, the only thing I remember being said was that some guy in the back told the driver, "Hey, turn here." The driver turned hard, turning my stomach a little bit, and that's when I remembered my dad's advice. So I don't really deserve that much credit on remembering, and the only reason I used that advice is because I didn't quite know what was going on because none of the guys seemed angry or particularly menacing. So I was more confused than scared. I was in the car for less than a full minute before I was pushed out on a corner. Only when I woke up the next day and related what happened to my much smarter, worldly and careful roommate did I realize how dangerous it could have been. My thinking up until then had been that a group of boys were out partying and saw a drunk girl and thought it'd be funny to grab her and take her with them to a party or something. God, was I stupid. I think young girls are much more informed these days. I was just lucky and very stupid. Thanks for the love anyway. This also works for the above post if someone is trying to kidnap you or get you into their car. If you ever feel intense pressure in your chest that radiates up into your jaw, you are probably having a heart attack. Source: had heart attack last month. I get this feeling every time I eat 188 sushis at the all-you-can-eat sushi buffet. If you've been stabbed, leave the sharp object in the wound until it can be treated by a professional. Sometimes the knife, stick, whatever is the only thing sealing the wound so you don't bleed out. On a similar note, if you for some reason get stabbed in the eye with a stick, cover both eyes. Moving your injured eye can cause more damage, and it's impossible to move your eyes independently, and if they aren't covered you'll instinctively look around with the uninjured one. Source: Boy Scout first aid training. I've never thought about the fact that you can't move your eyes independently. Now it's driving me insane that I can't. Do not jump in the water to save a drowning person unless absolutely necessary, that is, a child, etc. Drowning people tend to clasp on their rescuers and drag them under with them. Find something to throw or some sort of lifeline. If a drowning person does grab on, they will essentially try to climb you like a ladder or push you under to get the leverage to get some air. It's instinctive at that point and impossible to override. If you're being pushed under, just swim down out of their grasp, come up a little ways away, and try to reapproach. Prop someone on their side when they're drunk and passed out. If they're laying on their back and start vomiting, they could asphyxiate themselves. Their left side. It's called the recovery position. Or fill a backpack with blankets, clothes, etc. and slip the person's arms in. They can't roll over with a stuffed backpack. If you're hiking, doing anything else outdoors alone, tell someone where you're going and when you should be back. If you become incapacitated, this will increase survival chances by a lot. If you live alone, have a check-in person that you text goodnight and will notice if you don't. A coworker living alone choked to death in her home. You just never know. Edit. Yes, I know this wouldn't have saved my coworker from choking. I put it more to show that it isn't just elderly who have unexpected risks when living alone. A better example would be falling in the shower and getting nosed out. My sincerest apologies to people with shower anxiety now. Haha, yeah, who doesn't have a person to text goodnight? Sob. If you drop a loaded gun, do not try to catch it. Let it fall. Modern firearms do not just go off for like no reason. Trying to catch it makes it easier to accidentally pull the trigger. Before people go off about antique guns and blah blah yada yada, unless you are at the range, your antique needs to be in its case or you are an irresponsible gun owner. Modern firearms do not just fire off like that, even high points. Also a knife. A drop knife has no handle. Also, move back. A drop knife loves feet. If you have been on the fence for a while about being too cold to continue, in a backcountry situation, you are already too cold. Immediately make emergency efforts to get warm. Being hypothermic severely clouds your judgment. You convinced me. I'm turning the thermostat up to 74. Chew carefully and well if you're eating steak alone. Additionally, learn to perform the Heimlich on yourself using a chair. Put toilet paper in your cars. I once saw a man taking a roadside emergency dump while holding onto a tire to keep from falling back into the demon he was releasing. I immediately checked for toilet paper and it has not left my vehicle since. Pain on your right side? Push down slightly on it and cough. If pain intensifies, it's most likely your appendix and you should get it checked out. Wife had 2 surgeries on it this year. Don't pick up items on Craigslist or Kijiji alone. You never know when the item you head out to pick is actually just a lure. Been in uncomfortable situations and have always made sure to never go alone anymore. My life isn't worth a boxed set of DVDs. If you don't have someone to bring, you can always meet at a public place like the library instead of going to their house. Offering to meet at the police station tends to deter people who are fencing stolen property. If you get bit by something with venom, don't try to suck it out. I knew all those dudes on the side of the road in RDR2 were full of shit. If you are stuck in your car during a dire emergency, take the headrest off your seat, if applicable, and use it to smash the window. If you are ever being attacked or kidnapped by someone with a nose ring, earring, or any sort of visible piercing, tear it out. It hurts, especially the nose ring. As a person with a nose ring, I cringed reading this. 10 out of 10 would work and would hurt very badly. LOL. If a police officer tries to pull you over in a dark, isolated area, don't stop until you reach a public place. People pretending to be police to rob or kidnap people is a real thing. My friend used to date a guy who lived 30 minutes away on a dark highway. She is not the type to speed or disobey laws. One night, a cop tried pulling her over on the dark highway. She called 911 and kept driving because her parents always told her to not stop in a secluded area for anyone. Eventually, the dispatcher was able to verify it was a real cop. When he approached her car, he said something like, "Oh, so you didn't want to stop for me, huh?" She repeated what she was taught, and the cop ended up being very understanding. She wasn't actively trying to escape him, just kept driving slow while she called 911. As a lifelong Floridian, I see this all the time here and elsewhere in the news. In the event of a disaster, stay the duck away from down power lines. Don't walk along the street with them. Don't drive your car over them. Don't take selfies with them. They're thunder noodles and have been known to kill. If you should be foolish enough to crash your car into water, find a sharp object. Attempting to open the door is fruitless until the pressure equalizes. Break the window glass and swim out that way. The metal part of a removed headrest can be used to break windows in this situation. We had a sheriff come in to talk to us about active shooter situations. Going through that training taught me a ton, but the one piece of advice I got that stuck with me was, have a plan, and every day go through the plan in your head. This will help you to not panic if it actually happens. Never try to engage, but if, God forbid, you must defend yourself, then you swarm. Be savage and do not let up. Their due process was done when they decided to bring a gun into your building. Can't state enough how much they advise to never engage but have a plan for everything. My workplace did training on active shooter situations and the way it was expressed was run, hide, fight. If you can run, foe. If you can't run, then hide. If you can't hide, then fight. Just delete your old social media accounts from when you were younger if you know you're an idiot. Whether or not you think you didn't post something dumb, you probably did. Yeah, everything stays on the internet. But why be an open book? People love to use Twitter to take down people these days. If you get caught in a forest fire, find an area of dried grass without many trees around. Burn the grass, somehow, and lay in the patch of burned grass. It's your best chance at survival. Got any tips to prevent suffocation? Or is it unlikely to suffocate in open air on a forest fire? Genuinely curious, though I honestly hope I never get to use these tips. If someone grabs you by the throat from behind, don't try to pull away. Lean backwards into the attacker instead to throw them off balance, and jab them in the stomach wherever you can with your elbow as you do it. Don't fall into a grain silo. Guy I went to school with recently fell into a grain silo and suffocated in the hot corn. It was his 18th birthday. If you aren't trained and equipped for an in-water rescue, don't attempt an in-water rescue of someone who is drowning. Edit. What you should do. Try to reach them with something like a long pole. This works best if the victim is close, like in a pool. Lie down so the victim can't easily pull you in. Try to throw the victim something that floats. Life ring. life jacket, wetsuit, pool toys. Those shitty styrofoam ice chests people sometimes take to the beach. It's handy if whatever you throw has a rope attached so you can pull the person in, but it's more important to get the person something floating to stop the drowning. Then you can solve the problem of getting a non-drowning, and hopefully not panicking, victim out of the water. Try to get to the victim in a small craft like a jet ski or rowboat. This one is very situational and often not available, but always should be on the list. Never use brake cleaner before welding. If you get stabbed, do not pull it out, since it's Christmas, water your tree, or don't get a real one. On an airplane, if the oxygen masks drop, put yours on first, then put it on the kids. It's fine for them to get lightheaded, but if you do, then you both die. When pumping fuel, if there is a fire, do not pull the nozzle out. Just stop the flow if possible and back away, and hit the fire suppression system. If you hydroplane, do not make any sudden inputs, just keep her straight and slowly lift off the throttle. Do not downshift to slow down on icy roads. If a dog is going to attack you, do not run. Make yourself look as big as you can and yell and snarl like a maniac. Failing that, kick that dog. You are smart. You have 2 arms, 2 legs and a mouth. A dog only has a mouth. You can defend yourself. Believe in yourself. Above all, my biggest pieces of advice is do not panic. Keep your wits about you. You are so much stronger than you think. Just don't panic. Easier said than done, I know, but it's true. Shortness of breath can indicate heart problems. My father told our family doctor about it and they sent him for tests. They found problems and did open heart surgery. It saved his life, and I want more people to know about this seemingly unrelated symptom. If you feel you're going to collapse, clench your buttocks together. You also can't cry while squeezing your butt cheeks together. Useful when you need to keep your shit together, and a fun fact to lighten the situation when someone else is about to lose it. Never pee on a jellyfish sting. Douse it with vinegar instead. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.